One of the things that's kind of unique about us is, although we're fifth gen, we actually stayed mom and pop for 4 of those 5 generations. And then I came in and blew it all up.
When you came on board, what changed saying, listen, I want to grow this into something else?
I was just restless. I didn't know it at the time, but I'm an entrepreneur.
A 5-generation business, that's so incredible. It really reinforces to me that there's so much value in looking at manufacturing as a long haul.
Welcome to the Next Gen Metal Fab podcast. I'm your host, Tim Heston. In each episode, I'll be joined by a rotation of co-hosts. Caleb Chamberlain from Oshkosh, Cody Lee from Everyday Technologies, and Lance Thrakill from All Metals Fabricating. Together, we'll talk about what the future could look like for precision sheet metal and tube fabrication.
Want to level up your manufacturing or metal fabrication career? Fabricators and Manufacturers Association connects you with the education, training, and community you need to stay ahead. As an FMA member, you'll get access to exclusive resources, industry events, and a network of professionals who share your passion for making things better. Join today and start building your future in manufacturing at fmamfg.org. And now, back to the episode.
Thanks so much for joining us for this 2026 edition of the Next Gen Metal Fab podcast. This year, we are mixing it up a tad. This is kind of a new chapter in the Next Gen Metal Fab podcast. Over the next year, we'll be inviting various folks into the podcast regarding, their stories, kind of a virtual industry panel, the immense diversity that we're seeing. And it's really exciting to be kind of at the center of that. There's a whole range of new generation folks coming into this business that's making it an incredibly valuable and incredibly wide collection of business models. That's really great to see. I'm joined today with one of my co-hosts, Caleb Chamberlain of Oshkosh out in Utah, and FMA member Matthew Nix. He has quite a story to tell about his business, Nix Companies, and Nix Industrial under that, and a bunch of divisions under that. It's a 5th-generation family business. Matthew, why don't you tell us a bit about your business and where you're coming from?
Thanks, Tim and Caleb. Excited to be here with you guys. Yeah, we do have I think a great story. In fact, we wrote a book about it. It's up over my shoulder right here, Forging Ahead, and that guy on the cover is my great-grandfather. And so we started out as a blacksmith shop. Actually, my great-great-grandfather started. He immigrated from Germany, started a blacksmith shop fixing agriculture equipment. We're in southwestern Indiana and right in the heart of the Midwest and ag country. And there's a little shop like that in every town in the country. Real cornerstone kind of businesses. They make and fix stuff out of metal, and that was really what we did for 4 generations. And we still do that today, but just on a different scale. And so evolved into mom and pop welding shop, a little machine shop. And one of the things that's kind of unique about us is, although we're 5th gen, we actually stayed mom and pop for 4 of those 5 generations. So when I joined the business, it was my dad, my aunt, my grandfather, and I. That was the whole business. And my aunt did the payroll and the accounting, and she also ran a lathe and a milling machine when she wasn't doing that. Everybody did what they had to do, and made a great living, great sort of blue collar, hardworking lifestyle. And then I came in and sort of blew it all up. But we hired the first team member in 2010. And since then, we've grown the business with all the companies combined, we've got probably close to about 250 folks now. So it looks and feels a lot more like a 2nd-gen business, just in the sense of you have the founders and then the folks that are growing it. We are definitely 5th-gen, been an uninterrupted business since 1902, but it looks and feels a little more like Gen 2. And so today we call ourselves Custom Manufacturer and Industrial Repair Company. So, effectively still doing the same things we did 100 years ago, just, deploying technology to do that and doing it on a much broader scale.
My chief question for you is, it sounds like a 2nd generation because you had a couple generations where again, you're a steady, small mom and pop business. When you came on board, what was the epiphany? What changed saying, listen, I want to grow this into something else?
I was just restless. I didn't know it at the time, but I'm an entrepreneur, always wanting to push the boundaries and do things, and I just drove my dad nuts, and he likes to say he finally just gave in and loved me. I wore him down, but yeah, I mean, just to put it in perspective, like, we had a service truck, we would go out in the field and do welding in the field, and we didn't have our phone number on the truck, and I bought $70 magnets and put our name and phone number on the truck, and, he chewed my ass for doing that, and then that led to, like, tens of thousands of dollars of work that I got because of that, and we didn't have a second phone line, the line was always busy, and, I didn't ask permission, I just went and got a second phone line, it was $30 a month, and, he about freaked out, but, I mean, it was real earth-shattering stuff to grow the business.
That's great, that's great. Now, I did have a question for you about your, career pathing that I've talked to some of the folks on your leadership team about recent career pathing, and this will dovetail also into Caleb's story as well, which I'll dovetail that into this conversation soon, but kinda bring me through your career pathing that you have now that is rather structured for a fab shop. People join Nix and now they know their future. So to describe the background behind that for me.
For sure. Yeah, well, I'm a big believer in, people need to be able to connect their work with meaning and purpose, but then also see, a trajectory for their own career path. You need something to look forward to and something to strive for. And so we created basically four verticals within our business. There's the operations sort of pathway, we'll call it, administrative, business development, and then like the professional, like engineering, estimating, those kind of functions. So those are the four different sort of paths, if you will. People can move, upward, just your normal traditional upward trajectory, and they can move laterally and then up. And so, but just making it real simple and real clear. So we have like a generic org chart for each of those, right? You come in the shop as an entry level team member, and then you become proficient, and then you can be a team lead, and then a foreman, and then a department manager, and so on and so forth. Um, we have a young lady. She hired as a high school intern, and she was running a bandsaw, and then she ends up learning the next machine, the next machine. Next thing you know, 3 years later, she's our material processing lead. She's running this, 3 or 4 person team, overseeing all the material processing in that shop. And she just moved into a full-time talent acquisition manager job. It's our first full-time recruiter. And so she moved laterally on that pathway. But yeah, we're really excited about that. That's something we've been working hard at here recently.
Right, right. Now, Caleb, I want to bring you on this conversation because we've talked before in previous podcasts about how some of your machine operators are now software developers. And again, just in case somebody's is just chiming in on this podcast for the first time, just give us a brief background on your entirely different business background of Oshkosh. Just kind of bring, just again, the quick story of how Oshkosh was founded, and it's going to be an interesting juxtaposition to Nix because it's a very different business, and that's what's so great about having you both on this podcast.
Yeah, so I super respect a 5 generation business. That's so incredible. The It really reinforces to me that there's so much value in looking at manufacturing as a long haul. It's not like found a company and then sprint to an exit like you see in the tech world so often. It's way more, deliberate and long-term thinking, at least if it's done right. I actually draw inspiration from those kind of stories all the time, and when I hear them, awesome. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, our history, we're at the very beginning of a long haul. We're only 7 years in so far, and we got started just because it was kind of hard to source one-offs for projects that my brother and I were working on. I have a career in electrical engineering and control theory, so I had a company where we built innate autopilots and inertial sensors for aircraft. And I worked at a radar company, and I worked at a medical devices company doing pulse oximetry. But then on the side, my brother and I were making projects, and it was just so hard to buy one-offs. We were like the worst kind of customer. Like we would buy, a dozen unique parts and never order them again. Anyway, we started a company just so we could get our own parts easier, and we were kind of software first from the beginning. We built systems that allowed us to do high mix, low volume at scale really easily. Until today, we're doing about 3,500 unique SKUs every single week, and never 90% of them we'll never see again. Um, so we kind of absorbed a lot of work that's really uninteresting for most shops, just because it's not uh, with all the office overheads that you usually see, it's usually not economical to do them at all. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Very interesting business model.
Caleb, kind of describe how your career path for your team has kind of evolved over the last 7 years, as far as how you onboard folks, and then how you bring them through, saying, all right, here are the opportunities that you can have at Oshkosh.
Yeah, we actually um, don't target people with manufacturing experience from the get-go. We preferentially hire people for culture first. It's never against someone if they have experience, obviously, but our first criteria is whether they're a good cultural fit, whether they've got that farmer's work ethic, whether they're good team players. And then we do all the training in-house. So for every piece of equipment, from the lasers to the press brakes, finishing equipment, and that also includes our leaders as well. All of our leaders are homegrown, so to speak. And we promote up through the ranks. We have team leads and then shift leads, and then we've got a general manager and a COO all kind of in-house here. And then on the software team, we have one developer who started out just kind of on the floor, but we actually um, put together some material so we could learn how to program. So he's a full-time software developer now, and he's been able to ramp up his pay and his responsibilities, and he kind of spearheads our IT systems too. So yeah, I mean that when you find a smart person and they have an aptitude for something, it doesn't matter what their background is. You can kind of train them and provide the information they need to succeed in any area.
Again, unusual business model in metal fab. But Matthew, I wanted to get into to the birth of Nix companies. So how did the current business structure take place, and expanding beyond? Because I know you had now have fleet services. You've got a video marketing company now, I think, right? So describe how the groundwork for that expansion took place.
Sure. Yeah. So our legacy company is Nix Industrial. So that's the direct lineage from the blacksmith shop. It was a blacksmith shop, and then it was Nix Welding was what we did business as. And then that has evolved into our brand, Nix Industrial. So that's the legacy company, the one that's been around for 5 gen. I'm still very involved in that business today. My brother and a few other senior leaders really run the day to day of that business, and it still makes up predominantly most of the parent holding company. But we had founded and acquired a few other companies along the way, and the holding company was just formed just to clean it all up. So when we finished buying our parents out and had one partner that we took out, and this very common where ownership was all fragmented and complicated, and so we just formed a holdco simply to buy everybody else out and roll it all up. And another thing we did, that's I think very unique to us, is when we were going through that process of forming the holdco, we had 4 of our executive team members who are not part of the Nix family, people we had brought on and built the team. They actually bought into that holdco. So 5th generation, principally family owned, but also leadership owned, which is I think is unique for someone that's been around as long as us. And we feel that it's a big part of our recipe for success. In fact, we've now gone down the org chart to the next level, and we've put a performance unit plan. It's like a stock option plan in place for those folks. But so anyways, to answer your question, Holdco was formed to kind of clean it all up. And then along the way, we've gotten involved in other ventures that, there's always sort of a rhyme or reason. Like the marketing company, for example, he was our head of marketing, and he approached me and said, I've always dreamed about owning my own business. And I mean, it was sort of self-fulfilling for us. It was like, we're either going to lose this guy or help him build a marketing company. So it wasn't like we were being real real generous. It was just like we didn't lose him or help him. So we helped him, and we own half the company. He owns half of it. He's been very successful. He's, very thankful to have our support. And, we kind of served as an incubator, right, to help him get up and get going. And naturally, we're a big client of his. So that's why we're in that business. The fleet service partners business, a lot of similarities in what they do and what we do. It's a commercial truck body shop. So, we're going to fix wrecked semis or UPS trucks, Amazon vans, things like that. There's a lot of similarities in that and, the industrial metal repair we do. So we ventured into that business as well. And so, we're involved in a handful of other things, but Nix Industrial is still the core business.
Yeah, yeah. I specifically wanted to talk about ProFab Alliance. I know we wrote about that a few years ago. What's the status of that? And kind of give me the background about that, because that's a very interesting concept there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll tell you that really why that came to be. The easiest way to describe it is it's a consulting company. I mean, I sort of hate the word consulting, but I don't know how else to describe it. And that's what we do. We just help other fabricators. I mean, that's what we do. But yeah, so we've done a lot of acquisitions. I think we've done 9 acquisitions in 10 years. And as I do that, I mean, I look at, I don't know, 10, 20 times the amount of businesses that you end up buying. And so along the way, I sort of realized like there's a bunch of really great owner operator businesses out there. Unfortunately, they're not a fit for us at this point to buy them because they're still too reliant on the owner or owners plural. Really great businesses. They make a lot of money. Again, cornerstone kind of businesses, but there's a lot of tribal knowledge. There's not a lot of systems and processes. They're a founder led type company. And so it just occurred to us like, man, there's such a tremendous opportunity in the marketplace to help these people. And frankly, like, there's just, these people are either going to have to find somebody within the company to sell it to, or they're going to have to grow and put systems and processes in place to make their company marketable, or they're going to close down. So that was kind of where it came from. And then we've got Adam Schmidt, who I think's been on the podcast or written some articles for you. He's vice president of administration for us. He's done about every job in the company over the years, but he's really the brainchild behind our systems and processes that we deploy across all our businesses. And he was, just like I said about our marketing team member that want to do their own thing. Adam said, I'm really passionate about this. I'd love to help other businesses. And so we just kind of put the 2 and 2 together, and that's where that came from. We've pulled back lately on pursuing that as heavily, simply because we've had so many projects of our own. We've bought 2 companies recently, and so when you buy a company, you really you have to, all the things we want to do to help other customers, we need to do that for ourselves right now. We're deploying all those services for ourselves. And that can be as simple as getting a CRM process put in place, right? Or they have an old legacy accounting system that's not adequate to get good, timely financials out, or they don't have a KPI dashboard. Just you name it. It's just really meeting them where they are and figuring out what they need to do to take this thing from a, sort of tribal knowledge, founder-led business to a professionally managed organization.
Yeah, that's really the core to it. And I also wanted to pick your brain about your technology usage, and also, how you look at their existing software technology and integrating that into the larger whole when you purchase a company. So explain that process. And again, that'll dovetail nicely into Caleb's software backbone, so to speak. But kind of bring me through how your company adopts software.
I'm in over my head on this conversation, but and we're pretty agnostic when it comes to that. I mean, and frankly, we're still figuring it out, is the honest question. But I will tell you that we have, because we do so many different things, we struggle to find a like let's just talk ERP, for example. We struggle to find an ERP that would like do everything that we do and do it well. And so what we've settled into now is we're putting everybody on the same CRM system on the front end, and everyone's on the same accounting package on the back end. So we got the same data going in, same data coming out. And then in the middle, everybody's running their own, I guess what you'd call MRP, for lack of a better term. But I mean, we're doing everything from as simple as Google Sheets that we've built out a, pretty robust, Google Sheets system, all the way to industry leading software in some of the businesses we're in, or somewhere in between, right? So that's kind of the high level overview of what we're doing. So to answer your question, when we buy a business, we basically say, okay, what do we got to solve for immediately? Like if they're not getting timely, reliable financials out, management financials, like we got to fix that one. Or if it's okay, they don't have a CRM in place, we're going to go in and implement that. And so we don't have like we're going to do this, then we're going to do this kind of thing. It's case by case on what's needed.
Right, right. And this is just to give a preview on what we'll be covering in the magazine in the next couple months, but I just spoke with a very small shop in Texas, about 10 or 15 people, and the weld foreman is vibe coding on the side, and he literally wrote an MTR tracking, a material test report
Yeah.
system that he's developing into a full-blown ERP, in-house scheduling,
Oh yeah.
everything.
The world's changing so rapidly on that. I would have a lot of heartburn about getting locked into a long-term subscription on something right now because yeah, with
Yeah,
AI and the
it's
ability to do things in house is that world's changing very rapidly.
right, but, this story will focus on the fact that this is a very small company. So before, yeah, they were using Google Sheets and just basically, had an Excel or Access database, very simple. But now you've got folks who, again, the welder I spoke to was pretty amazing. He said, "Hey, I just went home and wrote it."
Yeah.
Quiet guy, it was amazing. So
Yeah.
so 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 Caleb, kind of bring me through your software evolution this year, because this brings the entire, totally separate, um again totally separate kind of business, but now, I mean, now you've got tube bending simulated online. So kind of bring me through the latest updates. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, one of the big challenges with tube bending is that it's really easy to design a tube that can't be manufactured, and it also depends on the equipment of the vendor and the tooling that they have. Like, how can you stack tools? Is it a right left bender? Just what's the form factor of the machine? So you might design a part that works on one vendor's machine and not another, or that works on nobody's machine. And then meanwhile, it's kind of like sheet metal was when we started 7 years ago, where doing a one-off is kind of hard for tube shops and mostly uninteresting. There's always exceptions to that rule, but triage is kind of the name of the game for good reason. So we're approaching tube bending the same way we approached sheet metal bending 7 years ago, which is um, you can upload a 3D model of your tube. Our system unfolds it, and then it refolds it on our tools in your web browser so you can see if it's going to work. And if it doesn't, you can tweak your design. So it's a very self-serve kind of a system like the rest of our stuff. And you can also design a tube in the browser. So you can say, these lengths, these rotations, or these XYZ coordinates, and it'll like round the radius between them. And it'll give you the tube, and you can watch it bend on the tube bender, and then you can download the model and do stuff in CAD if you want. So it's kind of a from first principles design for manufacturability, as in shape your tube, confirm it can be made on the machine, then do what you need to it. So we'll do a lot of stuff on that over the course of the next few years to make it better and easier to use, but we're probably launching that in January 2026. So maybe by the time this podcast's out.
For tube bending, how do you maintain that library? And are you building a library of bend tools and mandrels, for that matter, for different, if you do have mandrel
We
bending?
do have mandrel bending, and they make it interesting actually because they wear out so fast. Um, but yeah, it's rotary jaw bending and mandrels whenever it's required. We keep a database of the tools. We model them in 3D for each one. And then we have our own code that figures out the bending sequence to make it work. And we will probably use that code to write a post as well. So basically, we'll only use our own software stack when programming our benders.
Wow, wow, wow. That's amazing. And from this end, we've got, this, Oshcut's customer onboarding program is very much like, I call it in Amazon. You basically click to order. To the other side, which is great for low volume prototypes, etc. Matthew, kind of bring me through your customer onboarding process and how that's evolved again from you putting a magnet on a truck years ago.
Yeah.
So kind of bring me through your customer onboarding process and if you've standardized it across Nix.
Sure. Well, I will start by saying that the similarity that Caleb and I have, or Oshkat and Nix has, is that while we certainly have not leaned into tech on the front end, anything like they have, I share the priority to make it as easy to do business with us as possible. So that's and we've got to get a lot better at that. By the way, I'm not sitting here saying we're great. I'm just saying it's a big priority of mine. So we are also low volume, high mix, just as a general sort of rule. Um, Again, there's exceptions to that, but generally across our organization, that's what we're a job shop for the most part. All our different business, like we have a traditional sheet metal shop. It's laser cutting, CNC forming, robotic welding, very much a traditional sheet metal shop. We're doing contract manufacturing runs for other manufacturers. We have a structural shop where we do new building construction. We've got a custom shop that's real, industrial, like platform, stairs, rails, right? So we have shops that do all these different things. But by and large, it's pretty project oriented. But as far as onboarding customers, um, we we might do a project for a customer and not see them again for a year or two. How do we make it easy to do business with us, but also build those relationships? So one of the things we started doing here lately is just simple stuff. Is now when you get the quote from us, the estimate quotation, we put our project team at the bottom. So there's a little picture. We're trying to make it personal, right? Like, here's the estimator that estimated your job. There's a little picture of them, and it tells a little bit about them and something kind of fun or funny or whatever to make it personal. Here's the estimator. Here's the project manager that's going to oversee your job. Here's the general manager of the business that's going to be run at. Um, so we're trying to do that and really kind of lean more into making it. I'd say, or Caleb's leaning into tech, which I love, and we're probably leaning into like old school principles of like really make it really personal. In terms of like onboarding a customer, I don't think we really have a good standardized process. We do have an outside sales team, so we have people out, boots on the ground, trying to build relationships, uncover opportunities, and um, I'll say maybe the one thing we like to do is we like to get them to the headquarters if we can. We feel like, um, again, people buy from it's just the opposite of what they're doing on Oshcat, but and they do a lot of that, by the way. Amazon, I freaking hate spending money with Amazon, but it's just too damn easy not to. Okay. I think, I mean, it just absolutely galls me to give him any more money, but I do it all the damn time. So Caleb's he's on the right track. But if you're not going to go that route, then you better go real heavy into what we're trying to do, which is like leaning into old school stuff, and it's relationships. People buy from people that they know and like and trust, and we want to get you to our headquarters. We want to give you a tour, take you out to lunch, get to know you, and so that when that project comes up, you think of us. And um, I know it sounds simple and cliche, but it's just what we do,
Well,
and it works.
our model and yours actually go really well together. The relationships based, recurring work, recurring customers kind of a model is kind of the answer to high office overhead for, you can't like we're bidding on 18,000 parts a week. Um, and naturally you can't do that with this high touch, like really bespoke experience with a customer. You necessarily have to figure out how you're going to get around that and having a really great relationship with your customers so that you don't have to redo that, high cost onboarding experience over and over again. That is the way to do it unless you automate it all away, which is what we did. But I think my thesis is that if you can automate away the overheads and make it so anybody can order sheet metal, then ultimately you'll get more people in the funnel, like from a technology perspective, from a market perspective. And then companies like yours end up doing more business for more people just because there's more people buying sheet metal. So it really works really well. And these two business models aren't like inimical. They're not against each other. Because there's actually no way we can have the high touch experience that you do with all of our customers. It wouldn't work.
So Matthew, just bring me through some of your largest growth years when you bought several companies, and how you managed that dramatic growth. I just wanna dive into that a bit as far as onboarding so many new kinds of people from just, because you were a small welding shop not too long ago in the grand scheme of things.
Cash is king and information's queen. So you better manage your cash flow and you better know what the hell's going on. That's what I tell everybody. And we've struggled with both of those at times, but, yeah, I mean, that's how we've been able to do it. And, yeah, big growth years, like to put in perspective, early on, we were doing about a $500,000 in annual sales when I first took over. And I took on a $500,000 job that doubled the business overnight effectively. And we ran a night shift. And when I say we, I mean, I ran the night shift. I worked all day. Then I worked at night. My brother and I took turns every other day working double shifts. And, you just do what you got to do. And we made a ton of money because we didn't have a lot of overhead at the time. And think about when you double your business, you don't add overhead, the incremental increase to the bottom line is pretty substantial. That gave us some fuel to get going. And, yeah, then, we made some acquisitions. Like we acquired a structural shop that was, uh, half the size that we were. So again, that was a big, scary leap to do that. And, been very, very blessed to be able to grow that thing many, many times over since we acquired it. But yeah, to do that, we've got a great team. I was probably hiring leadership, um, beyond what the current needs of the business were. And that was burdensome financially at times, but there's no way we were going to be able to scale if we didn't do that. So we were, we had more leadership horsepower, thus more payroll than really what we could justify. And that allowed us to do that and just leaned heavy into systems and processes. And, so I've got a little Google Sheet dashboard that I can look at every morning and see like five key things that I want to know about every location, just red, yellow, green. We just put simple tools in place to help us know what's going on, across the business and what can I do to support you. So yeah.
What was the impetus to get those systems in place? Because to be honest, I've talked to a lot of fabricators over the years who kind of reach a certain level of revenue,
Yeah.
but then the system then I call it they outrun the revenue. In other words, they can't
Yep.
the systems and processes aren't in place, and so it's
They
hard to.
stall out too. I look at when we do acquisitions, we look, all these businesses are in the same revenue band. And Adam Schmidt, our VP of administration, he said to me one time, he goes, Matthew, why in the hell are all these shops like doing the same amount of revenue? And I said, it's really simple. I coined this term. I call it maximum complexity. That's the ceiling with which the company can go, where the owner operator is he's capped out, right? He's doing it all. He's managing by walking around. He knows everything about all the jobs and what's going on. And that's about the same number
What's that
in our
revenue
industry.
band?
Um, yeah, but $4 to $6 million in annual revenue is what a owner operator can take a business like ours to, with basic systems and processes. They're running. They probably got a decent accounting package, but not a lot else. They probably got Microsoft Excel for their schedule, maybe. Um, and you kind of understand the rest. But so yeah, what we have to do is we had to figure out, okay, how do we engineer these bottlenecks out, and how do you do that with minimal bureaucracy, which is a never ending challenge, right? Like how do you process and systematize a business and manage it from afar? Our locations are spread out. I can't be at every location every day. How do I get the information I need to keep tabs on it and know how I can serve and support without creating a bunch of bureaucracy and BS? And so you just try to balance those two. It's a
So so
never ending
so
battle.
I know it's a battle, but how have you minimized the BS and get the just the right amount of bureaucracy to have control and not chaos, but
Yeah.
yet still have the information you need?
Yeah. So and this all came through, trial by fire and great mentors and advisors. But I had to figure out like what do I have to know every day, every week, every month, right? What's the minimum? Like so for example, every week, if I can only know two things, it would be how much sales did we make this week, like new POs in the door, and how much did we ship an invoice? Okay. If I know what's coming in and what's going out, like I at least keep some tabs on what's going on, right? So just really trying to say, and I get other updates weekly, like, our safety and do we have any warranties this week and so on and so forth. But just really figuring out what's the minimal amount of information I have to have, daily, weekly, monthly. And then, cause that's what I want to have. But then for the leadership team to say, what's valuable for you? What information is valuable and, up and down the org chart. And that's what we try to base around. We're starting blank slate in 2026. I just promoted our CFO to COO. And I told him, I said, Jared, this is your dashboard. Now I said, just start blank slate and see what's valuable and what's not. Like if it's not valuable, let's get it off of here. We don't need people filling out reports for the sake of doing reports.
Exactly, exactly. Now, Caleb, kind of bring me through your journey with data because obviously you started with software, but you also started from, you didn't, from outside the industry, you came in and said, all right, let's try it. Let's bootstrap this. Kind of bring me through the metrics that you measured over the years, what worked, what didn't, and what was most effective, and what you hope to improve moving forward when it comes to kind of metrics and how the shop floor is
Hopefully
performing.
we've started supremely data heavy and reliant and backed away from that a little bit over the years, but we still are pretty data heavy, I think, from the perspective of most shops. By the way, I'm noticing the books in your background, Matthew. We share some reading preferences there. Traction, is that Good to Great next to it? Awesome books. I read those
Yeah.
every year. Um, Yeah, from the data front, I had the craziest, like most involved customer behavior, acquisition, attrition, revenue, predictive models. 6 months in advance, I could predict our revenue to within 5%, and it was awesome. But and we did that because we're acquiring thousands of customers, and we can observe how they behave on average, and then we can see what it's taking to acquire, and we kind of go through all those steps and roll it out in a big model. So I could look at ad spend and adjust my ad spend numbers until revenue or cash flow peaked in a certain time period, and then eventually starts falling because you had diminishing returns. Everything was in the model, and then this year we broke it. We destroyed the model by improving our service and increasing our addressable market in ways that made it worthless. And what I suddenly realized was I've been so comfortable because we're on model, quote unquote, but we should always be trying to break the models. We should always be trying to reinvent how we do business in ways that improve the customer experience. And just getting way too heavily focused on the data was really bad for our long-term growth, actually. So that's an interesting lesson I've learned within the last 12 months.
Yeah. We went
Yeah.
through similar experience, different application, but yeah, very similar
Yeah.
experience here
So
too.
you're right. Yeah. You simplify, you decide what you need and make sure it's the bare minimum that you need. And then don't get too crazy, staring at your spreadsheet instead of, you know, uh, optimizing your service and making it better.
Matthew, bring me through your data experience. You mentioned something that where you had a similar experience from Caleb there.
Yeah, it was also on the CRM front for us, in customer in pipeline management, I'll call it. Yeah, we were geeking out over data for a long time and really massaging it, and it in theory, yes, for the same thing, trying to predict revenue, look ahead. We were putting weighted averages at different steps of the funnel, and when it gets to this step, the probability to win is this and this. And if you have enough data sample in there, it'll work itself out to the averages. You got to really scrutinize the way everybody puts the information into the CRM and if it's accurate. A lot of energy goes into that. Ultimately, just sort of felt like the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. And to Caleb's point, you spend a lot of time worrying about that instead of just optimizing the business and trusting that if we do that, the revenue will come. But to find some middle ground, I mean, now I get a report and we scrutinize it quarterly, but more of a 90-day look ahead of high probability jobs that are going to close that are needle moving jobs. And again, where should we focus? Because what are you going to do with the information if you get it, right? And so I said, well, I want to focus on the needle moving jobs that we can influence that haven't closed yet. And so try to put more focus on that as opposed to all this data.
How do you define a needle moving job?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time it's just a dollar amount, right? Like, that number, of course, gets bigger as the company grows, but it also, sometimes maybe it's a very strategic customer. Maybe it's not a huge dollar amount, but hey, this is our first, we just flag it. High impact is the term we use, but it gets flagged as high impact. So my brother's VP of business development, I mean, he kind of has the say on that, but yeah, if it's a job that is going to be significant dollar amount that's going to move the needle for us, we'll flag it high impact or like if it's a new customer kind of thing.
Right, right, right. Yeah, it makes sense, and that's, but what's interesting too is that the it's always a probability guess, right? Like, is it going to be high impact? Is it not going to be high impact, etc. Have you ever had any kind of customer audits where you just kind of look at it and go, okay, how can we improve the customer experience this way? It's like, how can we improve it?
So I'm developing a tool that my brother and our sales manager could use. And again, I want him to do this quarterly, to kind of force rank the customers and so that we can do two things. One, how do we spend more time and energy with the great customers? And and then to your point, Tim, of now we can focus on improving that customer experience. But within that, to your point, we've got to be introspective too and say, all right, what can we do to serve these customers better?
Right,
And
exactly.
most of the time, that's going to come back to being more efficient and streamlined with how we uh, manage information flow. That's usually the low hanging fruit.
So Caleb, kind of bring me through how we've been talking about data, customer data, but also you have production data all the way through your funnel and value stream, so to speak, your pipeline. Kind of bring me through how that, you built your new plant. Did you use data to do that, or was it pretty intuitive and says, no, we have our processes down? And kind of bring me through how you use your existing production data, because you launched with data, being a software oriented operation, to kind of expand to your new plant in 2024.
Yeah, we keep track of laser efficiency. We've written software, our own software that connects to the machines and pulls the data off so we can pull efficiency reports and see what's going on. We can see if operators are like dialing down the feed speed and leaving it dialed down. Sometimes that happens, although it shouldn't. Um, if they're having to slow down because it affects the cut, then usually that means we've got to change a cut condition or a tech table, depending on the vendor you're talking about. But but that's most of it. We also built some systems where we can track how long it takes to produce parts at other operations like bending and welding. But what we found, and I almost don't even want to say this because it feels like such a concession that I don't want to make. It is really hard to get accurate time data when you're relying on an operator to punch a clock. It's actually really hard. Like each of our operators might touch 1,000 parts or more in a day, and asking them to hit start and hit stop at all the appropriate moments and keep track. So we've almost written off a lot of that data as a loss. It's easier when it's a big project, like if it's a welding job that takes an hour or something, then it's a lot easier. But if it's like, a one-off bent part, it's a hard ask actually. So we're trying to figure out maybe if there's other ways that we can build models based on cumulative time over categories of parts. Build some algorithms that or some models that go back and eke out the factors that drive time. if you know you have 5 brake operators, and they made this many parts this hour and this many parts this hour, and then you accumulate that data over a year, then maybe you can build a model that approximates the times pretty well. But which would be nice, but it's actually a challenging problem to get good times, at least at our shop. Maybe you guys have better systems, Matthew, but
It's one of the most challenging things we do for sure.
Do you have, Caleb, I wanted to follow up with the sequencing. Do you have sequencing, strategic sequencing through the breaks as far as, reducing batch sizes and sharing similar setups, or is it all driven by due date?
Uh, it's a mix, and we actually give our operators quite a lot of discretion to decide what they want to work on next, which we might dial in the future, so the environment's more predictable. But we're definitely not like um, doing more than one part simultaneously on a set of tools. Like for sure, we're not doing that. Um, but yeah, the operators will look at the list and what's due and what's a rush, and they'll say, "Oh, I've already got that set of tools pulled, so we'll just do that one." And that is pretty common, but it's their choice right now.
All right. Well, their choice, that kind of dovetails, Matthew, into another topic area I want to talk about, which is their choice pushing responsibility down on the chain. I always keep this shop anonymous, but I remember visiting a shop that it was actually, you mentioned systems and processes. This shop reached about 15-20 million dollars a year, and it made it there because it had several huge accounts, but this was before their transformation. They have since transformed, but it was chaos. It was we have folks yelling at other folks like, "Where is this part?" Had red tags all over the floor for rework, and I could tell that. And later we I caught up with them. It's like, all right, how I solved that? I pushed responsibility down. Unfortunately, it was a headstrong owner that kind of micromanaged the entire operation, and he realized that and kind of had a transformational moment there. And I'm wondering how I assume, Matthew, you've always had that, or did you or did you have a similar transformational moment, or have you always said, "No, let's push the responsibility down as far as we can"?
I think we've always been a little bit that way. I mean, I started out on the shop floor, so my natural inclination is that those folks out there know what we need better than anybody. Um, but we can always do better at that too. We do things to try to, like we have ideas for improvement, and each team member is accountable for coming up with ideas for how to make the business better. That all gets tracked. We give awards out for the best ideas. I do listening sessions where I sit down with the frontline team members without their direct leader or supervisor there, and just ask them things like, what's going well? What could be going better? What should we start doing? What should we stop doing? To try to, get to pull that information up. Um, so yeah, no, I mean, we've always been that way. It's just, I think the challenge is, how do you not lose sight of that as you grow, and um, you can't you can't do everything at once. Everything can't be a priority. So how do you listen to people? I guess that's a big thing that I've been struggling with lately is, if you create this environment where we want your input and we want your ideas, how do you take that in and not stifle it when you can't execute on all of it? So working through making sure we close the feedback loop. And
Give me an example of that, as far as all right, get the feedback loop coming up, and then here we can execute, here we can't, but let's shelf this because this will be good for down the road, perhaps. So kind of bring me how you triage that information.
Well, how it should be done is that, so we meet on, like, just use ideas for improvement. We meet on, go over those and review them. And if something's not approved, then that needs to immediately get, delivered back to that person as to why it was not approved, or if it's delayed, why it was approved. And it's all tracked in a spreadsheet, pretty simple.
So, what's your game plan moving into 2026? Again, taking that feedback from the floor and building it into overarching strategy to grow the business.
Yeah, our focus for 26 is getting back to the basics. We've grown a lot, and we just, you know, uh, more is not always better. So, just focusing on, yeah, just getting some things tightened up, getting ready for our next chapter of growth. But yeah, really just focusing on some basics, I mean, just tightening some things up. We need to get out better, faster, safer, right? I mean, it sounds simple. We need to put out better quality work. We need to put out more efficient work. We just got to get better. That's all.
Caleb, kind of bring me through your 2026 and beyond as far as your game plan for Oshkosh.
We'll keep iterating on the services that we offer and making them better. Our goal is always to say yes more often. We're also something we've realized is that we've grown pretty fast, but most people still don't know who we are. We only recently have built a mature marketing system and marketing team internally. And now that we have it and it's working, we're going to lean into it. So we're upping our marketing and ads budget to about $3 million next year. We've got a lot of things that we're going to lean on that front to get in front of relevant audiences in the several markets that we serve. And we also have some big changes in the works that are a little secret still, but they'll be more transformative to the company than anything we've done to date. So we are pretty excited about rolling those out over the next several months.
Well, again, thank you to you both for your time. This is great. And Matthew, it was wonderful to hear you how your business transformed from, now refresh my memory. When was it a weld shop with fewer than 10 people?
I hired the first person in 2010.
So we're talking 15 years.
Yeah. And the book tells the story, the history, but then also the more modern part of our growth stories in the book. And if anybody's interested, and it's on Amazon, Forging Ahead is the title of the book. It's the subtitle is How Small Town Values Collided with Big Ambition to Spark One of America's Fastest Growing Companies. So encourage people to check it out, and then connect with me on LinkedIn. I love to meet other business owners and leaders.
While we were talking earlier, I got on and ordered a copy. So it'll show up on my doorstep on Sunday. Yeah?
Thanks for doing that.
E-commerce happening right here on the Next Gen Metal Fab podcast. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, see ya.
Thanks so much.
The Next Gen Metal Fab podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association and part of the FMA Podcast Network. The show is hosted by Tim Heston and Caleb Chamberlain. The podcast is produced and edited by Garrett Slager and Dana Weicker. Additional production support by Dan Davis, Andy Flando, Mike Owens, Billy Culpa, Elizabeth Gavin, and me, Sarah Spring. Thank you for listening.
Wow. That's amazing.